Hey guys, how's it going? Yuli here, and today we're taking a bit of a break from Strapi, and instead I'm going to show you two services which I very much enjoy using, two services that provide mock or fake APIs, and the two services being JSON Placeholder and Json Server. Now, when you're starting a front-end project, whether for learning, tutorials, or just prototyping, there is sometimes a need for some external data. Now, what are the choices? Well, we could write our own API first, but let's be real, you'd rather fetch something nice and pre-made. And that is where JSON Placeholder comes in. It's free, it's easy to use REST API for all of your testing purposes. Now, make sure to stick around afterwards because I'll show you JSON Server, which is another service by the same guys that allows you to customize your fake API data. Alright, without further ado, let's jump into this project. Today we're going to be working from a React app, and let me just really quickly run through everything that we're using here. I'm not going to explain React. If you want to learn more about the stuff that I'm using today, just Google React or React hooks and you'll probably see a bunch of useful stuff. Alright, so first of all, we have useState. This is a state for our information for the stuff that we're going to be fetching. We are using useEffect hook and Axios to fetch our information. And then we have some JSX, which renders user cards. And let me just start the project so you would see how it looks visually. And I'm going to put all of the code in the repo, and I'm going to put the link into the description. Alright, so this is what it looks like. It's just a bunch of cards with name, email, and phone number. Pretty typical, pretty silly stuff. Let's say we have a client, and that client wants us to build an app that outputs a list of all of his clients with all of this client info. And let's say we've built it out and we want to test it. We want to fill in some data, but we don't have any APIs. We don't want to create some silly fake state. We just want to mock everything as if we're doing it for real. And this is where JSON Placeholder comes in. All we have to do is go to the JSON Placeholder website, go to resources, and pick whichever resource fits our needs. In my case today, I like the users. We are provided with ID, name, username, address, phone, website, basically pretty much everything that we would want. All I have to do to fetch this data is take this URL right here and paste it into my Axios request. Now we have to make sure that we are putting data into our clients and outputting it. But let's log it first to see what exactly we're getting. And here we are. We are getting an array of 10 objects with 10 of our clients. Alright, now let's use this info. Now we want name, phone, and email. So let's just use a little bit of React magic. Let's copy this user card. Delete everything else. And here we want to make sure that we have clients. And if we do, we want to map through all of the clients, take each individual client, and let's just do this, and output this user card div. Now we want to use this client info, so let's access those fields. And here we go. We have 10 cards with all of our client info. Very nice. Now let's pretend you also wanted to be able to make a delete or a put or a post request to the JSON placeholder. Well, you can and can't do that. Unfortunately, JSON placeholder obviously doesn't allow everyone to make delete requests on their resources because, well, if everyone would do that, that would be complete mayhem. So instead, we have to turn to something else. Now, let's say you wanted something more specific from your data. Let's say for some reason you wanted your client's hobbies to be also output, and obviously JSON placeholder does not provide any of that. So what do we want to do? Thankfully, there's also JSON Server. Now, JSON Server serves a similar function, a similar purpose, but there's a little bit more to what you can do with it. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that right now. First of all, JSON Server does need to be installed. So let's open up another terminal window and run install, and we install it globally. Alright, the second thing we need to do is we need to create a db.json file at the root of our application. And this is going to act as our backend, kind of as our database. Let me just paste some stuff in. This is similar to what we had before, except instead of an email, we have an array of hobbies. And the way we launch JSON Server is by typing the command JSON Server with the watch flag and the name of our JSON file. And by default, it's going to start at localhost 3000, but in case you wanted to start it at some other port, we would just go same way, have a port parameter with the port number that you want, for example 2004. And here we go. Let's open up our localhost 3004/clients, and we see all of our client data. We see exactly this. All right, let's fetch this data. We are just going to paste this link into our GET request. Now, we also obviously need to change some stuff because we no longer have email, and instead we have hobbies. So I'm going to comment out this line, and instead I'm going to just run these hobbies and run them through map like we did before, and for each hobby we just want to output, we can do it like this, we can just want to output an age, let's say age 3 with the hobby. And here we go. We're outputting data from our local JSON Server instance. Alright guys, now let's try to delete stuff. And the first thing we need for that is a delete button. So let's create one. We want to go inside the div. Want to make a button with a class name of delete. And inside it, let's put a big fat X. Here we go. It's not pretty, but it's functional. Alright, so now we want to attach an onClick and create a function that handles the deletion. Let's call it delete client. And to target a specific client card, we want to bind it to the ID. let's take away this console log and create the function. Now we're going to be using a Axios delete request, so we're going to use async await. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to create a new client list variable in which we want to run this client list through a filter array method, where for each client we want to know whether that client's ID matches or doesn't match, whether that client ID doesn't match the ID that we're providing. And we are returning everything that doesn't equal to the ID of that specific card. And afterwards, of course, we want to set our client state to this new client list. All right, let's see if this works. We're pressing the button and it deletes all of them. But if we refresh, obviously it's just a state change. Now let's try to make a delete request. We await Axios.delete request, and we are going to make it to this address / and we're going to use template literals to pass the ID that we are pressing on. All right, let's try this one. Let's say we want to delete this J. Smith. They have no hobbies. We don't want him. Let's refresh. Boom, they're gone. And what's good for us is they're gone forever. They're gone from our clients list. And you can do the same thing with post and put methods as you would with regular CRUD API. A successful post will create a new client, and put will update whatever data you need. And there's a lot of really cool other stuff that you can do with JSON Server that I can't cover in this tutorial, because the tutorial will be really, really long. But one of the other things that I really enjoy about this is the pagination. You can use these parameters to create pagination or filtering, and you can do a lot with JSON Server that you would be able to do with a really good backend API, and that's why I think it's a really neat and valuable tool. You can have relationships, you can load up remote schemas, so you can have a JSON file online that you're kind of referring to, and the documentation for this is really good. I'm going to leave the link in the description, but there's just so much stuff you can do with JSON Server, and it's amazing that it's a free service that you can just install and use right away. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.